All right, welcome everyone to the City Council meeting for Monday, October 14th, 2024. If we have a roll call, Madam Clerk, to establish a quorum.
David Avanzino.
Here.
Steve Holofield.
Here.
Harry Meyer.
Here.
Autumn Slane. Here. Susan Gurning. Here. Terry McClung.
I'm here.
All right, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, at this time, we are going to open it up for a public hearing for the Eureka Springs Transit. Smitty, you want to come up and give your opening remarks?
I gave you all copies of it. You can follow along with me. For the record, this is a public hearing of Eureka Springs Transit System.
You might speak up a little bit or move the microphone a little bit. There you go.
Move it toward me. How's that? Better?
Better.
I don't like microphones, but here we go. Here's the public hearing for the Eureka Springs Transit System. I'm Ken Smith, Director of Eureka Springs Transit System. This hearing is a requirement of the Federal Transit Administration, the FTA, and the Arkansas Department of Transportation, RDOT. I'll read the following and afterwards entertain any questions you have. 2024, this has been an interesting year for transit. We are suffering from a driver shortage, which has caused cutting some service, mainly combining routes. This makes wait times for riders a little longer. Also, overtime costs have been extreme this year to try and keep full service going. But sometimes drivers are not available. For 2025, we are working for plans for driver recruitment to get enough drivers so the system's not so strained as it has been this year. We're also working to ways to inform the public of reduced service. Recently, there have been complaints about transit drivers and managers. We take all complaints seriously, even when they don't come directly to us. Safety is our number one priority when serving our ridership. When we receive a complaint, we do research as best we can to determine what has happened. When a driver does not adhere to policy, they are counseled. Any further discretion, the driver is subject to further disciplinary actions, including a written reprimand up to suspension or termination. We are also updating our management activities. Each trolley is equipped with video for surveillance system. In the past, we've used it to see what the drivers are doing en route. We are going to increase the use of that system to witness any other discrepancies in transit policy to see if complaints are valid. We consider complaints an opportunity to improve, so we welcome complaints or suggestions. To say transit is a mess is to disagree with RDOT and the FTA. We are inspected and audited regularly, and they like the way we do things. Eureka Transit has been awarded the Outstanding 5311 system twice, 2019 and 2020, and we are often used as an example to other systems and how we do things. We are proud of what we do for Eureka Springs. During 2024, Transit is still seeing funding coming from the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or the CARES Act. We are still being funded 100% in our operation expenses. We were awarded $530,386 for our operations. That's the remainder of the CARES Act's funds. There is no match needed. After we used the CARES Act funds, we were funded $173,014 for the remainder of the year at the normal 50-50 match, for transit matching $86,507. We will finally use up the CARES Act funds this month. Our administration expenses with a normal 80-20 split. We are awarded $278,050 for administration expenses, with transit matching $55,610. As of the end of September, we have received $181,571.41 in administration funding and $514,031.02 in operations funding. 2024 was a busy one for capital expenses. Since we did not order any vehicles, we requested funds for other items we needed, and here is a summary. We replaced the automatic doors at our downtown Dolly Depot for a cost of $43,088. For our trolley maintenance facility, we purchased the following: heavy-duty two-post lift for $48,792.16, a diagnostic work center tool for $18,809, an AC refrigerant recharging system with refrigerant for $16,953.11, a welding machine, $5,304.68, a 1,500-pound wheel dolly, $579.68, hub bearing removal tool for $825.77, and a strut removal tool for $522.80. For the office, we purchased the following: 4 square register systems for $4,060, an office copier printer for $6,113.37. Our capital expenses for 2024 have cost $145,048.57, but transit paying a match is $29,009.71. In 2024, we are seeing an increase in ridership over last year by 2.89%. Early in 2024, ridership was up a lot, but August and September we have seen major slowdown in ridership. October seems to be doing better. In 2024, we implemented the on-demand service Friday and Saturday nights. Ridership was a hit-or-miss experiment. It was not what I had hoped it would be. We mostly see our visitors to the city using the service and very few locals. Before next season, we will evaluate this service to see if we will continue it in 2025. For 2025, we are budgeting administration expenses of $280,100. With 80-20 split with the FTA, we are requesting $224,080 in federal funding with a match of $56,020. In our operation expenses, we are budgeting $968,309. In 2024, most of our expenses were covered 100% by FTA, and as I mentioned earlier, the CARES Act funds have been used up. We are moving forward expecting the 50-50 split as we had before the CARES Act. With the $968,309 expenses we have budgeted, we will deduct our fare revenue, which is budgeted at $257,100. That leaves $711,209. A 50-50 match means we are requesting $355,604 in federal funds, and we will match $355,604. We requested funding for 2 trolleys for 2025. The cost of the trolleys was $255,000 per vehicle based on estimates from the past manufacturer. However, we were warned by the state that funding requests for vehicles was more than the funding that the FTA was providing for the state of Arkansas. We will only get funding for 1 trolley. With the funds transit has, we will probably go ahead and buy the second trolley ourselves. Funding that is provided at an 80-20 match, which would be approximately $51,000 per vehicle, with the FTA providing $204,000. We will be selling 2 trolleys that have reached their useful life threshold and have been released from federal interest. These will go to auction probably next summer. We are also looking to secure a new tram and trailer for our tram tours. This vehicle will not be federally funded. This tram will be a fully electric vehicle, and estimates we are looking at just under $90,000 for the tram and the trailer with it. This will replace the tram and trailer, which was purchased in 1996. Tram tours are an important source of our matching funds that we are required to have for our FTA funding. Over the past several years, we've been awarded a preventive maintenance grant of $22,500. And thanks to the American Rescue Plan of 2021, we can use these funds with no match needed, 100% covered. You can use these funds for repairing vehicles or repairs to facilities as long as the cost is over $500. In 2024, we used all the $22,500 funds. In 2025, I expect we'll use the entire award again. Total funds we are requesting from the FTA are $806,184 with a total match obligation of $462,625. This match will be covered by our parking fees, advertising, the tram tours, and the State Transit Trust Fund. The Trust Fund will award Transit $169,752 for use as matching funds. These funds are from RDOT, not the FTA. As always, Transit is a subrecipient of federal funding, the Arkansas Department of Transportation being the recipient. All funds come through the state, and it is their duty to make sure all federal compliances are met. This includes all documentation on spending, our drug and alcohol testing program, the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, and Americans with Disability Act, just to name a few. There are many hoops to jump through to receive federal funds, but without them, there would be no Eureka Springs Transit. This concludes my report on public hearing. I'm always available for questions, comments about transit, by email, phone, or come by the office. I'll be happy to speak about transit. So I'll open up to any questions anyone has.
Mr. Holyfield?
What's your schedule now for the trams in town, the regular trams?
The trams,
I mean, the trolleys.
trolleys, May through October run 7 days a week. Sunday through Friday, we start at 10 o'clock, run till 6. On Saturdays, we start at 9 and run till 8.
Okay.
November, March, and April, we run Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 6, 9 to 6 on Saturdays. And then December, January, February, it's Wednesday through Saturday. And the reason we cut back in the winter time, we're kind of responsible for our fare revenue meeting a certain level of our expenses. And so we run 7 days a week with minimal fare revenue. The FTA will look at that and go, no, do something different.
Okay.
What were
And-
the hours again for your winter schedule?
Winter schedule for December, January, and February are Wednesday through Saturday, 10 to 5.
And then through,
November, March, and April,
Yeah.
Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 6.
10 to 6? Okay.
And on Saturdays, it's 9 to 6.
How much money do you get for total tickets for people riding?
That's our fare revenue, and this year, right now, not looking at October, haven't done anything books in October, we're at about $210,000 in fare revenue so far this year. And October is our busiest month of the year. So far, October has been really good.
And all your vehicles are ADA?
All of them are ADA, correct, except for the service vehicles, which are only used by employees.
Thank you.
Mr. Alanzino?
Yeah, Smitty, the amount in here for the fully electric vehicle was, what was it, 200,000?
Just under 90,000.
Does that include like the charging station
Yep.
for that vehicle? Okay, good.
Includes everything, and I got all the bells and whistles on it I think we would want.
Right.
You know, the guardrail on one side, a step up into it, because a lot of people have problems stepping into the trams we have now. So it has an extra running board, basically, they can step up into it. And it looks pretty nice, and being all electric, I think it'll be a nice addition to our fleet.
Ms. Swain?
Now, the trams are the white two vehicles together, yes?
They're
Or-
green trailers, yeah.
Okay, yeah, they're open.
Yeah.
We don't have electric ones now.
No, we don't. They're
Yeah.
gas powered.
Okay.
And like I said,
Is it going to go
one.
up and down our hills?
Pardon?
Is it going to go up and down our hills?
I asked them about that, and they said it'll work fully loaded up to a 10% grade. And I asked the Public Works Director, what's Plainer Hill? He says it's 6%. So I said it shouldn't be a problem. They say it will run 50 hours on a single charge. And like I said,
That's great news.
yeah, it looks good. And the one we have now, the trailer needs a lot of work on it. And like I said, the engine on the power car is, it's almost 30 years old now. So, and vehicles that don't go very fast, the engines wear out pretty quick. And we have the same issue with our trolleys going 35 miles an hour. That's bad for engines.
Ms. Greening?
On your current tram, how many people does that hold?
The double we're getting rid of will hold 28.
28?
And this new one we get will hold 28.
Okay, so
Do we
you're
have
you're not increasing it by,
Well, we have another tram, which is a power car we bought in 2015, and 2 trailers that holds up to 70.
okay.
So our tours can we've taken out both vehicles with tours before with bus groups that come in, and so we can go. It's about almost 100 people.
Mr. Holyfield?
So do you have any idea why the on-demand service didn't work as well as you thought? And what are you going to do?
I don't know.
Next year.
I was kind of hoping more locals would take advantage of it, but we had just a couple who did. But mostly it's visitors. And for instance, the Corvette weekend was great. They used the service. Saturday night, we had a total of 5 rides. Last Friday night, I think we had 7 rides. And so the cost comparison on providing this service, we have to really look at that. Because we are responsible. There's an unwritten rule with the FTA, so our fare revenue needs to be at least 25% of our expenses. So the more expenses we have, they should expect more fare revenue. And so if we go overboard in our expenses and don't provide the fare revenue, then they start looking at us a little closer. And we don't want the FTA looking closer because they're not nice.
Can you remind me, do they have to schedule that in advance, or is that just call up and say?
They have to. We do not take reservations for the. Are you talking about the on-demand?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't take reservations. When they're ready, they call us.
It's
called on-demand. There are categories of service provided by the FTA, and each one has to look like what the FTA says it is. Our trolleys are fixed routes. They have to be fixed routes. Our vans are on demand response, which means they reserve the day before. And on-demand is just that. It's on-demand.
And those vehicles are ADA compliant?
Everyone's ADA.
Thank you.
Mr. Meyer?
Why are you having so much trouble with finding drivers?
That's nationwide.
Is it?
Yeah. Since COVID, drivers haven't come back to public transportation. And a lot of it has to do basically with the pay scale. We went to $15 an hour a couple years ago, and hopefully we can increase that a little more each year. Part of our thinking about recruiting drivers is if they don't have their CDL, we would help them get their CDL. Before we didn't pay for their time because it's their license. I think now if somebody needs a CDL, we'll pay them to come and train, kind of incentive to, come, we'll help you get your CDL and you can drive it in. But it's nationwide, and it's just, since COVID, numbers are hurting. That's everybody.
Well, $15 an hour is not very good pay.
It's not. Razorback Transit starts their new drivers at $17 an hour. And other transit agencies are about that. So before we went up to 15, we were probably the lowest paid transit agency, but we're not the lowest paid transit agency now. So we're getting up there to attract drivers. And another issue for us is we such have a small area to recruit drivers from. Carroll County has 26,000 people, whereas Fayetteville, has 50,000 or 75,000. How many people Fayetteville has? So we have a smaller pool to draw from.
And they get benefits, right?
The full-time employees get benefits, yes. The seasonal do not. That might be something we can look at to see, offer them some kind of benefits for seasonal drivers, because they run basically. We start our seasonal drivers in March, and they go through November. So maybe we can figure out some kind of, package for them to recruit new drivers.
Anybody else from council? Any other questions? Do we have anybody from the public out there that has any questions or comments? All right, hearing none, I will declare the public hearing being closed. Thank you very much, Smith.
Thank you for your time.
All right, that brings us up to getting a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
The only thing I have is due to some things that we've just discovered from our rate analysis people, I'd like to table unfinished business number 2, the ordinance increasing the rates for water and wastewater usage, at least until our next meeting. So, is there anything else from anybody? If not, all those in favor of the agenda as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so moved. Get approval for the minutes for September 18th, 2024.
Motion to approve the minutes from September 18th, 2024.
Need a second?
Second.
All right, any corrections?
I was not here, so I'll recuse.
Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, get a motion to approve the minutes for September 23rd, the regular meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. Myers and second by Ms. Grunning. Any additions, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we do have some planning commission vacancies. We have two positions in there. Also, Parks has a position that's vacant, and HDC also has one that's vacant. So if y'all are interested in being on any of these commissions, please come on by and get an application. Public comments. Please limit your time to 3 minutes. And I guess that's going to be easy. Seeing no one's here for public comments, we'll continue on to our unfinished business with item number 1, sewer updates. Get a motion to discuss.
So moved.
Second.
All right. I'm going to have Zane, who is on our Zoom, to go first and lead off with you, Zane. Can you hear us okay?
I sure can, Mayor. Thank you so much. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. I'm going to do a screen share, and I hope that you guys can see that. Can you see the
Well, yeah.
black and white
That was-
site plan?
Who are you shooting at?
Oh, yeah, that was trap shooting. That was a lot of fun. That's up in Gravit. They've got a place up there that you can do events. It's really neat. They've got, I think, 10 different stations, 10 or 12 different stations. Anyway, so
We can see it, but we can't read anything. We can see
yes,
colors
of
and
course.
circles.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll zoom in as needed. The main thing I just wanted to do is have this up here so that as I talk through, I can zoom in as needed for clarity. So don't worry about reading anything right now. But the short update is that the staff, including Simon, have been working feverishly now for multiple weeks trying to dewater the existing sludge storage basin, which is represented by this dashed circle under the C Note 8 label here. And so we've discovered many things along the way in trying to just get all of the liquid out of it. But we're now at the very bottom, and the contractor sent videos that we may look at, depending on time, that shows that we do believe there are valves. Well, there are valves in the bottom of the tank, pressure relief valves, and those are there by design to allow for groundwater to come up into the tank and not damage the structure, primarily when it's empty, like it is right now. And so we are continuing, even though we're in a dry phase, to have groundwater come up into the tank out of these valves. That's a problem because the valves are not closing properly and seating. And we think that what has caused the primary discharge of the untreated sludge into the creek is trash and debris getting stuck inside of these valves. And so if you can imagine, it's like 2 cups, one inside of another. And as the pressure on the outside of the tank is greater, it lifts the inside cup and it lets water in. So they're not seating properly and they need to be replaced. There are also 4 valves in the very bottom of the side wall of the tank. Those are also corroded and damaged and they need to be replaced. I was going to jump to a photo of that. And so you can see the bottom of the tank, the circle of white sandbags is around these valves to try to isolate them from the sludge that's still being cleaned out in this photo. And then on the sidewall, here's one of the flat valves that is also old and corroded and likely not seating properly. I think I have another photo.
Zane, this is the tank that we haven't been using, right?
That's correct. This is the tank that has been drained down. And, in this photo, you can see it in the background here, Mayor. It's partially drained, but this was, before I traveled. I was away on another business trip all last week out of town. So I'm not sure whether any of the metal equipment has started to be removed from the tank or not. I think it has. I think most of it has been removed now. And that's how we're discovering, where the water's coming from in the bottom, because we've finally gotten it fully cleaned out. You can see on the right here, the corner of a square tank that's also poking out from behind the building with the roof, the shingled roof here. It turns out that this tank and the circular tank are hydraulically connected with piping. And so the contractor had a scare on Friday when they were trying to remove some of the piping, and water began to drain from the square tank into the circular tank. It's just really been one thing after the other. And that's what I was primarily wanting to try to kind of focus in on with this site plan as-built image, we call it, or this is the plans that are from what was built in approximately 2011. And the main thing to try to convey, and I don't think we've pulled one like this up before and looked at it as closely, but you see all these dashed lines underneath my markups and tying into the darker lines. Those are all old pipes that some of which work, some of which don't. They're valves that some of which work, some of which don't. And so basically we have struggled. We thought we could get this existing tank dewatered in a matter of days, and it's taken over 2 weeks. So with that, we have done, more walks around on site to try to figure out if there's easier ways to try to solve our problems. And this tank here that we've activated for temporary sludge storage, which is to the west of the lower tank, that's one of the solutions that Simon came up with that has allowed us to not have to haul liquid sludge. So we have had to haul a lot of stuff away from here, but we would have had to haul significantly more if we hadn't had this tank available to use temporarily. And so this was the first tank that the contractor plugged the bottom of to make watertight. And then back here behind it is the belt filter press building, which is the next thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit. So this is the belt filter press stamp, the Triton Aero Mod press. And, as far as I know, it was installed in approximately 2011, which is a very good, useful life for a piece of equipment like this to have lasted from then until now with no major repairs. But as we look more closely, we see that the side panels have somehow disappeared, and we're using random pieces of metal to keep spray down from spraying outside of the unit. We have wiring issues that have been tipped in but really need factory parts to repair properly. We have other, connections to the booster pump system that are likely, have been tipped in at one time and just have never had the time to be replaced or the resources. And these are things that are not terribly expensive, but when you start adding them all up together, it starts to add up to tens of thousands of dollars. So that starts to also point to why it may not have been performed before. Here's the other side of the machine with the panel intact, but we see that these breather holes are being blocked by tape by the operators, again, because water's splashing out. And so, that causes some of this moisture on the floor. It causes slipping issues. It's not ideal. This is a picture of one of the support systems that makes the belt filter press work. And without this system, the belt filter press does not work. This is what we have had problems with most recently. And I don't know whether it's this pump below or it's this one above, but this system is taking polymer from this blue tote here, this 55-gallon drum, and it's mixing it with water, and then it's sending it into this piping system that's behind this unit strut to the right in the photo. And all of that is what causes the sludge in the wastewater to clump together and be able to be dewatered on the press. And so there's just so many little support systems. This is not the only support system that makes the belt press work. And the belt press is how we process our solid sludge. It's the only way we can keep operating without having to haul liquid sludge, which is significantly more expensive. So again, these are just older systems. There's a lot of wear and tear. There's been a lot of repairs in specific components. This is a picture of the conveyor system, which, you know, as we've been working through over the past week and getting the press to work a little bit better, we've started to overload the conveyor system because it is minimally sized. It's not sized for perhaps what the sludge production is now, but that's unclear this time. This is some of the totes of other chemicals that are stored in the belt filter press building, which is one of the things that we think is preventing access to do routine maintenance. And we would like to propose providing some additional storage, basically expand this building again to be slightly larger to hold space for chemical storage. Here's pictures of, again, the progress of cleaning out the tank outside. I'm sorry, these aren't in a really organized order. But all of that solid material is what we're trying to make sure and capture and get out of the water. So we're not
Zane, we're having trouble.
This is the tank that drained onto the contractor while they were working. This is a picture of all of the piping connected to the sludge piping. So there's a sludge pump in this building back over here, and that's the sludge pump that feeds the belt filter press, but it's connected to the old piping network. And so we have had to chase shutting down valves to make sure that the sludge
We're having a hard time hearing, or I am.
I am too, yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Well, it's almost like this speaker here next to the TV.
something's not working well. I probably started talking too fast as well. I apologize. Can you hear me?
He has a speaker on where he is.
Zane, are you still speaking?
I am.
We can't even hear you now. I turned my microphone off. Is everybody's microphone turned off?
No.
Can you hear me now? How about now?
We lost. All right, we lost Zane for a moment.
What about now? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you with this hearing device.
I don't know what to do. What do we think? Can you hear me now? Is Simon?
Zane, see if are you getting the same vibration feedback?
No, I'm getting awful stimulated. Good, take a break.
All right. Zane, are you speaking now? No? I see the. What do we think the problem is? No. He's not even on now. No, we can't hear you at all, Zane.
Can you hear me now?
Are we doing anything?
I've tried. I don't know what else to do.
Oh, I think are we okay? All right, go ahead and let's start. Go ahead, Zane. Let's see if we can continue.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Well, as I was rambling about, there's a lot, and we keep uncovering layers to the onion of things that just need to be repaired or replaced. And in that time, we have also been able to start to gather proposals from equipment suppliers to try to get the sludge storage complete. And so I'm a little nervous to share screen again, but after I finish talking, I'll do that. And I have some updated pricing prepared, one of which is our best guess, but we don't have hard numbers yet for replacing those pressure relief valves in the bottom of the tank. We're waiting on the price of those valves. I think my number is probably high, which means it should be less than what I've got, and that's sitting at about $85,000 to finish fixing the tank structure. And then we have two separate sets of proposals, which really are a series of pieces of equipment that could be offered by one of up to three separate vendors, all working independently. But between the three of them, they each offer both options of either air equipment that is permanently installed in the bottom of the tank. And the difference there is that that is probably the most efficient way to give the system air. It turns out it's also more expensive. And so that option comes in over $200,000 to be able to get the basin ready to be able to hold sludge and keep it good, ready to get it to the press. The option to not install anything in the bottom of the tank, but to instead have a floating mixer aerator at the surface of the water comes in less than that, some amount. We hope as low as less than $200,000. We have proposals to back up some of this, but there's a lot of like accessories and optional pricing. For instance, whether we moor it with cables versus a pivot arm. The pivot arm option allowing for the tank to be able to be utilized at a lot of different depths. And so you can imagine this floating thing just traveling up and down with the water because we often will have the tank either completely full or nearly empty. And so, you know, what we're hoping is that with some of these updates that we can, you know, move forward with the mayor and Simon being authorized to enter into the agreements necessary to keep this work progressing, to stay in compliance with, you know, some of the requirements that DEQ has put on us, and also to get us to a point where we can put the basin back into service and it will not be leaking sludge back into the creek as quickly as possible. My understanding from Simon is that they are still incurring some additional cost for operating in our current temporary operational mode to be able to keep the sludge processing happening, since we don't have as large of a tank available. So that will be ongoing until we get the tank fixed and able to put water back in it. But then there are still things that will not be fixed at that point, even with the sludge storage tank fixed. So we've talked a little bit about the sludge pump, and we've talked about trying to make sure the belt filter press is working well. And right now, we do not have proposals on those items yet. We're trying to get them from suppliers. We anticipate that could be as much as an additional $500,000. That would be, you know, at that point, with that amount of money on the table, we would be evaluating whether to fix the existing unit or to just replace it with a completely new unit. And we would be trying to bring that decision to you all based on a recommendation from the manufacturer after the evaluation that we have not done yet. But other things within that would be to move the existing pump from its current building to where it can be closer to the belt filter press and get it out of the building that needs to be demoed. It would also be to replace that polymer feed system that we showed you pictures of that's 30 years old. And it would be to do all that interconnected piping work that the contractor needs to do. So now that I've said most of it, I'm going to try this screen share one more time and see if I can't show you guys. Oh, hold on. Let me pull it back up. And I can email this to you, Mayor. We were just trying to update this up until the moments right before the meeting so that it was as current as possible. These are, you know, moving costs as we take things out that we can figure out how to fix for less expensive, or we find something else that's broken. Most recently, my understanding is that Simon did a really good job helping to figure out how to get the belt filter press to work a little bit better. And so let's try this screen share one more time. And so this very first screen is just the breakout of replacement of these pressure relief valves that are in the bottom of the tank. And then something that we haven't talked about as much yet, but you know, the original project focused around equipment that was failing due to ragging and other trash and debris getting into the pumps, which is one of the first pieces of equipment that failed last year. So this item number 4 here, Simon has worked with the contractor, and our contractor that we're working with right now has a custom fabrication facility that's not available with most other contractors, where they can build us things. And so we have asked suppliers for a quote for something that we could put on the line that pumps into the basin we're trying to fix right now that will catch trash. not a sophisticated piece of equipment, but just a basket that could be pulled out with a winch or a piece of equipment and emptied, so that when we're pumping sludge into the clean new basin, we're not just starting the problem all over again. The quotes that we've received from equipment suppliers range from $30,000 to $100,000 or more if we wanted to do something that was like a septage receiving station, an all-in-one manufactured type unit. And so, the idea of just building a basic basket for $12,000 is very reasonable and should allow the basin to stay more clean with trash and debris. And so those structure costs are what are reflected here. We've used the 25% contingency. This is not intended to be a hard price. This is intended to be a budget for the mayor and Simon to work with. Individual
In a little bit,
proposal-
it's hard to see.
Oh, yes. For sure, Mayor. Is that a little better?
A little bit more if you would. All right,
Zane, that basket deal, Simon told me about that when we were down there looking at it. It's a good thing to do until we get the new headworks done at the other end of the unit, right?
That's correct. Yeah, one of the things that Simon and I talked a lot about this afternoon is how to start just incrementally removing the trash that has begun to accumulate in the system, a lot of which we found at the bottom of the basin that we've cleaned out now. And so, we would love to not have to do that again, which is what this basket would help with. We've also talked about some other ways of trying to, remove some of that. It will just cost money. The most expensive, being to immediately proceed with the full equipment installation that we would like to, but that's, the project that will be millions of dollars. And I didn't think that we were ready to do that yet, based on not having heard back from the funding, from the federal funding options yet. So, this really is kind of an intermediate option, trying to be as economical as possible. The next page here is, again, putting equipment into this tank to make it be a proper sludge store.
By email. fact, we'll take a 5-minute recess, I guess.
Oh, good.
And I'll distribute that to the council members in the morning.
That's great.
Do you want to conclude with anything here?
I think the conclusion, Mayor, is that, we had hoped we would have had time to pull together a larger amount of federal funding by now and have done a more complete design, but instead we find ourselves with these constant equipment failures forcing us to do something. And so from where I'm sitting, the biggest question is, do you spend what you probably need to spend at the end of the day now and just go for it? Or do we try to spend less money now so that we can continue to work on a more thoughtful final plan?
I think we had two questions. One is, if we proceed with buying this equipment and everything, is it going to be able to be incorporated into the final plan?
Yes, it will.
And the second thing was, do we have a cost on what we're looking at for an intermediate to get us going and running, and what's our options here cost-wise?
Yes, sir. So that email will help a lot. And the first, input is the two options about the sludge storage, one of which is approximately $100,000 more, but that would be our traditional recommended option because it will say to us that it's less expensive over the course of 20 years. Basically, you'll run that more expensive system to buy at a lower energy use over 20 years. So the money you save now, if we choose the less expensive option, we will pay for in electricity. But then the next question would be the belt filter press itself and its surrounding systems, which is the larger dollar amount to proceed with on the shorter term. And that, right now we understand that could be as much as $500,000. I'm not, with the belt filter press, I'm not convinced that it won't be more, but we believe that we would be able to bring back better firm proposals once we get the belt filter press people to come to the site and tell us, kind of like we did with the Lakeside equipment. We figured out that we were going to be paying $150,000 to replace equipment that cost only twice that much brand new. And so that's why we have not proceeded with that at this time. But that becomes, one of the things that is not helping us to get the rocks and stuff out of the system. It's just all adding up, and it's going to get worse if we don't make steps to make it better more quickly.
Mr. McClung?
So you think that if we could come up with $1 million, that we would cover everything in our immediate needs? And
from what we know now, yes, sir.
Okay, then the next question to that is, what kind of time frame are we looking at, reasonably? I know
For
you can't
the
be
work
specific, yes, to get it completed.
Yes, the work that's happening right now at the tank that we are repairing, most of the quotes that we got were that equipment could ship within 6 weeks, which is very reasonable considering some of the equipment times. Some of the offers work more quickly than that. There is a supplier in Springdale that is one of the floating equipment suppliers. They may be able to provide something more quickly. And if that becomes part of the desirable solution, we can make sure that we are also evaluating what is going to get here most. I mean, we've been asking for those lead times, but everybody's been basically telling us between 4 to 6 weeks. And so we want them to tell us more definitely before we sign a contract.
Yeah, well, we need to kind of have these things in mind. And I don't know what our avenues would be to come up with that much money immediately, but we can certainly get out and plow for it. And I got a feeling there's a way to come up with it, because I think that in the long run we'll get some federal money and some reimbursements can be made, whether we have to borrow the money someplace, but it's got to be done.
Mr. Meyer?
What's the recommendation on the aeration in that big tank? I think Simon said something about it'd be better to have some aeration down in the bottom.
That is the better recommendation, and it's primarily because of saving you dollars over the long term.
It's the only way to go.
That option requires a blower that will feed that air system, and so that would sit up on the ground next to the tank. And other than that, it's a really simple system. The diffusers installed at the bottom of the tank will be less maintenance overall.
Yeah, it sounds to me like that's the way to go. We got to do right now, we got to make sure that we don't have any more overflows in the creek, that's all. We get another complaint to the ADAQ and we're bound to run into trouble.
They have come back into the season of writing letters. I have another client that just received their first angry letter, but it did not give them as much of an opportunity as we have been given to provide for what we're going to do to correct the action. And so I feel like we're in a really good place to continue to show DEQ that we're making proactive action, as you say.
Be good not to dawdle then, right?
I agree.
Anybody else, Mr. Hollifield?
I understand the urgency of this, and I totally agree with everything that's being said, and I do trust Zane's judgment. But I worry, are we violating city ordinances? Aren't we supposed to, any money spent over $20,000, isn't it supposed to be advertised and put out for bid? Are we violating our own city ordinances by not doing that?
Zane is getting bids for us.
Okay, is that how that works?
On some of that. Zane, is that...
So to your point, Mayor, we definitely are working towards multiple proposals for each item so that there is not just one single supplier that we're asking for a price from. Part of what my understanding of the emergency declaration is that it authorizes you and the council to make the decisions. And that's part of why we're bringing these budgets to you, is that it is very difficult to get a firm purchase order resolved until we can understand the scale of cost, if you will. And so by bringing these costs to you now, we are effectively asking for your authorization to make emergency expenditures, which, as you point out, in some cases, or in this case, very specifically, will exceed that other limiting amount.
And that also covers the ordinance about advertising, bids, and stuff like that?
Be an emergency.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I just don't want us to get caught up in...
No, we'd have special ordinance declaring an emergency.
And that's something that, obviously the city attorney was involved in creating the ordinance and everything. And so it does have that specific language in there. But no, we would not be doing this otherwise.
Okay.
Ms. Slane,
So if we approve,
is your mic on?
well, it is on. Hello?
Okay.
Okay. If we approve any funds now to Band-Aid or to try to slowly take care of the hot issues, are we going to be refunded the money back if the loan comes through? Or is it not going to be viable since we've already spent some money fixing it?
That is a great question. So, depending on the funding source, they often will have requirements that we are supposed to meet if you want to repay yourself. And so those would be questions we would probably want to, the loan that we have recently applied for and received from ANRD does not have any of those restrictions because it is a true emergency loan. But their normal revolving loan fund does have certain restrictions that have to do with compliance with American-made iron and steel, minority and disadvantaged businesses, things of that nature. And so we would need to be careful about that. Right now, the quotes that we've received are not specifically compliant with those requirements. Sometimes that can make the quotes more expensive if they're having to source their materials from specific basically fabrication shops. It's a very complicated deal, but basically every one of these manufacturers has, well, let me back up. The people in Springdale, it would be no problem complying with those requirements. So if that is one of the things that you would like for us to do, we can come back to you with confirmation of the ability to comply with those requirements.
I just don't want to lose potential grants or funding because we pay this ahead of time. You know what I mean? I don't want to. How much is that? Are we asking for that grant? I can't remember.
Well, we're not applying right now.
It's a loan.
We've got the loan
I'm
for
sorry.
$100,000 that we've been approved.
But we don't have one out for the. I thought it was a.
We have a $6 million loan request into the Arkansas Natural Resource Commission. And so those loan monies would have to comply. Right now, they would probably have to comply with the BABA requirements, which is the Buy America. And that is a certain version of iron and steel. And so it's not a problem at all to ask these suppliers to, confirm compliance with those requirements.
But I think the question is, can we prepay that and would the loan still be eligible for those amount that we prepaid for?
As long as we adhere to the requirements for the specific equipment, which would be what I was just referencing, and I can get you more information about that as well, Mayor, just for explanation purposes. Okay. But I believe the current set of requirements is referred to as BABA, and it's a series of this is what it means for it to be qualified as American made, and this is what percentage of the product that is allowed to be widgets that were not made in America that were assembled in the United States.
Confused. Okay, let me just clarify. If we pay for the repairs currently and we get this $6 million loan, will that $6 million loan be able to reimburse the city? Because that's what we would be doing. Or would it be something that we have to show receipts for and use it in current time after receive the loan?
Grant.
My understanding is that you are allowed to reimburse yourself as long as we can show them paperwork that the materials procured were in compliance with the requirements of the loan funding program.
Mr. McClung?
Thank you, Zane.
At the same time, if we went to a local bank, can we even do that? You go and borrow the money from, on a short-term basis. Can that be refunded? Can we pay that kind of a loan back? And you do things in an emergency that you would normally do, but
That's true. My understanding about federal dollars and any future federal dollars that would be applied to our ongoing project, that the work that is a permanent incorporation into the facility is what would be subject to the requirements of the various loan options.
In other words, if we borrowed the $1 million to proceed with whatever we need to buy and fix, then when we got the $6 million loan, we would be able to pay off that $1 million from the bank.
And that would be the goal, absolutely, Mayor. Not just in theory, but specifically for, the financial wellness of the utility in the city, to consolidate that debt, not have multiple debts out there. The only other option that we've seen clients pursue right now is the bond market, and that would be just instead of a large federal loan, it would be a large bond issue, and that would be the large funding for the big project. And so at that point, you could still pay yourself back for any smaller loans that we do in the short term, but a bond would not have any requirements
that would also be more expensive
They can be, yes, sir.
to the city.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Groening?
The bond that we were recently discussing with a client happened to only be 0.25% higher than the federal option offering, but it did not require any of the American-made certifications of products. And if you talk to a contractor, it is very unclear the exact cost of American-made equipment. Sometimes, depending on manufacturing, and in our case, we have the ability to choose American-made equipment, so it should not be an issue, especially on the short term. But for very specific items of equipment, like the belt filter press itself, I'm not currently aware where that belt filter press is manufactured. And so that's what begins to get more complicated is, we're working with an existing piece of equipment. If it's not a piece of equipment that's currently manufactured in America, we might be better off looking at a full replacement of a new item that is made in the United States so that there would be no question in the future of you paying yourself back for that.
Ms. Groening?
If that makes sense.
So, if I understand, this federal funding for $6 million, is this approved and we're just waiting?
No.
No.
Okay, so it's not even approved. So we're going to be borrowing money, but we need it. We need to have it fixed. So we're kind of in a pickle here, hoping that it gets approved. And it may not even be $6 million. Maybe they'll authorize $3 million or something. And then I'm thinking, if we do the bond, and the bond is a little higher, and we don't have quite the restrictions, and it's not all American made, although we would like it to be, depending on where they source it from, we may save money in that way. And yeah, oh, okay, and that takes longer too. And then we did the emergency loan of $100,000, so we have that outstanding that we would want to pay on top of this $1 million, right?
It will all be incorporated ultimately.
So it would be like a consolidated loan.
The same people that loan us $100,000, hopefully we're going to loan us the $6 million, which hopefully, and Zane, correct me if I'm wrong, once we get the loan, then we'll also be eligible for possible grants
Oh, nice.
from the same organization.
Okay. Is there anything?
Yes, sir. That is the biggest probably benefit that we have seen from taking federal dollars, either the ones we are currently in the queue for or the USDA loans that we've looked at hard and are thinking about applying for. To get back to, if we'll be approved, ANRD, it's not really an if, it's more a matter of when. They basically go through things in the order they receive them. It's kind of like the customer service queue line. And so what we've been told as to why our project has not already been seen by the commission is basically because they ran out of money.
We're still on
2024. And so, they wouldn't have done us very much good to have put us on their agenda. And basically they're now stacking up for the projects that they're going to be awarding funding for the fiscal year 2025, which their fiscal year starts like back in June. And so this next meeting in November for the commission will actually, my understanding is, be their first meeting for their 2025 fiscal year. So it doesn't seem like it, but we're still technically on schedule according to their schedule.
Ms. Lane?
I just want to talk about what is the total amount that we are talking about now? $6 million to do the big project?
The $6 million was focused on the new screening and grit removal unit, which was going to be approximately half of that for a fully installed, modify the existing site to accept those new pieces of equipment. And then much of what we are talking about now, there have been some, basically things growing a little bit, like if we have to completely replace the belt filter press, that was not intended to be included in the $6 million. But we don't think we're going to have to. We think we can just fix it. So I hope that answers your question.
Mr. Myers?
Zane, is the current belt filter press capable of handling a busy weekend? I was down there watching the thing operate, and unless Simon's there messing with it all the time, it's not putting out much sludge.
No, in its current state, no, not at all, not even close. On a good day, with all the things that have been broken addressed, as you say, with the staff kind of babying it, it is doing okay, but we are not sure if it's capable of handling the throughput capacity on a consistent basis until we basically get the manufacturer to come and make sure that we know what parts are about to break. The most complicated piece to replace is the belt itself. You have to completely disassemble the thing.
And it needs replacement.
Yes, and it needs to be replaced. And even figuring out how, we have to schedule that so that we know we're not going to need to put that piece of equipment into service while it's completely torn apart. So that becomes another logistical challenge as we're dealing with right now with the basin out of service.
Well, isn't that the whole deal? We have to have an operating sewer plant all the while we're waiting to do the big overhaul, and we can't afford to let any more stuff run down the creek. And that, right now, somebody's got to be babysitting it all the time, keep it from doing that. I mean, we've been polluting that creek for years, 15 years, 20 years.
Yeah.
We've been remiss in our duties. Had some of the people who, like the folks down at the railway station, had they called the ADEQ every time they saw an overflow, we'd be in deep doo-doo.
Ms. Slane?
Do we remember when you guys came with that video and it was basically a trash masher that ate up the debris and that kind of thing? Do you remember that, Zane?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay. Is that included in this price too?
In the $6 million?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
It is? Okay. I'm just wondering, fixing this conveyor belt, which is like this piece of equipment, is sad at best. Is that going to fix everything? I just feel like we're going to have another thing come up just off of what has been happening recently.
It is, as I spoke of doom and gloom the last time I was able to visit with y'all in person, it is really that bad. And it is likely not going to get better until we can get the permanent screen. Even the grit removal unit is important, but not as important as the new screen unit, because the screen unit is what's going to catch the rags, and the rags are what's hanging up on everything. The grit unit is also very important, but the screen unit is probably the most important. And, a brand new screen is between $250,000 and $1 million installed, depending on exactly which one we get. And, exactly where we put it on site. And so I think will still, even if we commit to that, so now we've been talking about spending up to $1 million to Band-Aid things. If we add the screen onto that, that's, we've added $1 million. So maybe we're spending $2 million on the short term, but we still have to get all of the rags that are already in the system out.
Oh, wow.
And so that will only get worse over time.
And we have to drain the SPRs to get the crud out. We can't drain the SPRs during tourist season, right? Because
That's
we're
right.
too
We can only do it
over
during
capacity.
the slow time. That's right. There's one company that claims they can suck stuff off the bottom of the tanks while they're in service. And they literally cost like 10 times as much as what Simon and I think it would cost a contractor to do it if we can just let them drain the basin. Wow. And that's a company out of Texas. They would not leave me alone all last year because they thought they were going to come and do that for us. And we just don't think we can afford it based on all the other needs.
So Would it be a fair assessment to say we maybe needed $8 million total to get everything completed? Just so we can maybe prepare and try to have a first, second, and third plan?
If we wanted to get you guys to where you would spend $0 for 20 to 30 years, we could spend more than $8 million to also build you wet weather flow equalization.
Okay.
When we prepared the $6 million budget, we were not considering flow capacity of the overall plant. And in the years since I've been working with y'all, we've been able to understand that you do have wet weather events that bring the flow to the plant above its rated capacity. And for short periods of time, that's totally normal. However, right now, it's very unclear whether DEQ would basically require us to provide for additional wet weather capacity, partially because we don't think the plant's working properly with all the stuff that's wrong, and with some amount of debris filling the bottoms of the SBRs. If that debris pile at the bottom of the SBRs is 10 feet thick, we may literally only be getting half of the capacity out of the plant right now. When the people who wanted to do the in-use sludge sucking visited, I think they reported that in one tank, the sludge level and debris level was 4 to 6 feet, and in another tank it was less than 4 feet, but that was some time ago now.
Well, and this year has been a very low rain year, so you're not even seeing a high rain year. So that's even more concerning.
It is, and I'm glad that you are aware of that. We have a project, where we're trying to design a brand new plant for a client that would be a very similar plant to what you all have if we had brand new screen and a brand new sludge storage tank and a brand new belt filter press. And the contractor recently priced that work at $42 million. And so we're only trying to do bits and pieces of that.
Right. Thank you.
But
Thank you.
Part of what I think has also happened since we first prepared that, I was just going to try to even look exactly when that was last year, but costs are not going down. And we have had equipment pricing increases on other projects of 10 to 15%, over the past 6 to 12 months. Sure. And so that is also happening while we keep talking about it.
Thank you, Zane.
Yeah, I think that we understand, Simon in particular and I have had a lot of conversations over the past 3 weeks about how it's just impossible to do the whole project all at once right now. That maybe if rates get adjusted and some revenues are built up, or if we can get the larger loan, that we could do things all at once. But, I don't think any of us want to have to meet like this every month for the next year to continuously approve things in an emergency setting. That's not our goal. And so, part of the goal would be, what is the minimum amount we could spend to give ourselves some breathing room to let the funding timing play out for the larger project. And we do believe that somewhere between $1 and $2 million, is a sweet spot where even if we don't put in a permanent new screen on the influent line, maybe we get another trash rack like what we're talking about doing at the sludge storage, which is again maintenance, more maintenance intensive and not a permanent solution. But for $20,000, we could at least stop getting most of the trash into the SBR basins, and that would be huge. Right. Yep.
Yeah, the lakeside hasn't been working for 15 years, so that's how much trash has been going on into the SBRs.
Simon, what's your time schedule on on the documents and everything, we need to know where we are at.
Did you intend that for Zane?
Or Zane, rather. I'm sorry. Zane?
Oh, you're fine, Mayor.
Yeah.
Based on the costs that are in the email, so forgive me, but everybody follow up with the email. We have listed here for y'all basically up to $400,000 worth of work that we could execute immediately, which would be to replace those faulty valves that were at the bottom of the tank and to install the air equipment so that the sludge can be processed properly. And then behind that is additional spending that we need to come back to you with updates on, but that is right now budget numbers for what we think, if approved, would be more than enough to get the belt filter press running well, have its support systems replaced, and basically get that manufacturer to come down here and tell us whether, after we spend $60,000 on parts, whether it's going to be worth, it still working for the next 3 years. And those improvements are not going to be things that are going to be just immediately replaced and thrown away with the big project. Those are improvements that will continue to be important systems that we rely on so that the larger project construction can take place without other systems falling apart on us. And then over time, they would either need, additional sludge storage. Whether we permanently make the tank that we're currently using as our temporary storage a second permanent sludge storage, or whether we build another tank, that you really need two. And the size of the tank that we're fixing now is approximately what you would want. But if we built a second one from scratch, we might build it even a little bit larger. Those are things that we would be thinking of over the next 5 to 10 years to respond to if there is growth. If there's not growth, then we wouldn't build that. But we want to make sure that there's room to build it. And so that's where paying now to go ahead and remove some of this old equipment and these old structures, we would pay today's dollars for that demolition and disposal instead of having to pay for those services in 5 years when they'll be 10% more expensive. But right now, we basically don't have anywhere on site where we can build anything. And so after we get this sludge storage and processing system back to functional, staff can spend more time doing what they're supposed to be doing normal day-to-day tests and monitoring the SBR process. But if we could continue to incrementally spend money on removal of old stuff that just needs to get out of the way, that would kind of be my next recommendation as we're continuing to work towards the big project. So finish the sludge storage, fix the belt filter press, demo as much as we can afford, and then we're at a place where we can even get a better price on the big project.
And we're at $1 million, roughly, to $2 million
Yes, sir.
for that cost. Okay.
Yes, sir. And at the 2 million mark, we're trying to figure out if we can't get possibly a permanent screen installed as the first big step towards the big project. But again, $2 million is a lot more than we were talking about even as of earlier today. So we have tempered our requests to less than $1 million total for now to just try to keep things moving.
Well, and I think a lot of this depends too on what we get from the Resource Council on the loan
Yes.
applications. So
Yes, sir.
on that. Did you have another question, Ms. Slane?
Well, I was just had a little concern about when you're mapping out for the next years and analyzing data, are you going back in history and analyzing Eureka's growth? So
we're doing that in the way that DEQ wants us to, but we are definitely open to input as far as you guys are the community, so you are familiar with how your community works. What they ask us to do is look at U.S. Census data, which is not always the most reflective, but that can also include any special census information that has been prepared by the city. And then they want us to apply basically growth factors developed by either the Arkansas Economic Development Commission or by UALR or some other entity, to where we as the engineer are not just selecting a growth rate. What we can do to that is we can talk about specific developments that may be under planning or have been approved that would cause a specific growth. But that's what we're looking at, and we could definitely find a way to justify if we have additional information.
I
think our growth is mainly tourism.
Yes.
You know, when you're looking at 2,300 people, even if we grew to 4,000 people, it's not going to be significant when you compared to 20,000 to 30,000 people.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't even answer that question fully. That is how we look at population growth.
Yeah.
In terms of the capacity of the treatment plant, we will look at the historical flow data from the past 4 to 5 years. And then as long as the trending of that data is not significantly different, we'll also be looking at just the past 12 months, which is what the regulatory agencies zoom in. And that's what they want to focus on, is what have your flows been doing for the past 12 months. But that will show the seasonal variations. And then over the course of the multi-year look, we can see if your peak season is also incrementally increasing. What I have heard, in talking to Simon primarily, and Terry down at the plant, is that while we have a peak season, we haven't necessarily seen the peak of the peak season getting bigger annually. Do you guys agree with that?
Theoretically, this plant was designed 20 years ago, and at that time it was we had peak seasons with the Passion Play, and all the motels that we had were full, and they said at that time, they still said, we still had growth opportunities. It was designed
Yes, sir.
for 25% growth at that point on tourism, not just population. So hopefully that's still valid. That's what it was 20 years ago, when supposedly we had more population in tourism on a nightly basis.
Yes. Well, and based on the data that we have analyzed, which was the past at least 3 years, I can't remember if we went back 5 years yet or not, just trying to get a rough idea, there is definitely capacity in the plant for growth. What we have not been able to needle in as fine-grained are the wet weather events. As you noted, we've had a dry year.
Right.
But we show that your average, if you took your total flow all year, and let me just qualify this as the last time I asked Terry for updated data was a couple months ago now, but as of, let's say, June of 2024, your 12 months of daily flow averaged into an average daily was just over half of the rated capacity of the plant. So your rated capacity is 0.9 MGD, and your actual data showed you at 0.5 MGD, or 0.55 maybe. And so there's definitely capacity there, but it's when you have multiple flow days over that 0.9 in a row that it can start to become a problem.
Sure. Ms. Greening?
The only thing I thought of when you're looking at historical data, especially right now, are the COVID years. So that would be an anomaly. You would probably have to go back even further.
Oh, absolutely.
That's a good point.
15 years, I think.
We saw water use rise over the COVID years. What I have seen anecdotally, and we just have to look at the data again to confirm this, is that it hasn't really gone back down. And so I think that's somewhat reflective of, I guess, people's changing work styles, of being at home more often. I know for me personally, COVID opened up my options for working from home to be able to care for my children. And so we have definitely seen a higher water use after the COVID years in our home.
Correct, but we had less tourism, and as Mayor said, this is really a lot of tourism that brings the levels up.
No, you're right. I keep thinking about towns that are not tourist towns like you all are, but that kind of fits with the flows we're seeing. That there's still that leftover capacity that if there had been continued tourist growth, that might be gone by now. So there's something to be thankful for. We would never want for slow growth, but if we had experienced steady growth over the past 10 years, we might be seeing wastewater flows that would actually make us have to expand the entire plant, not just the bits and pieces of it. That would double or triple the total price tag we'd be looking at.
Mr. Holyfield?
Well, after November 5th, we may have to worry about tourism, but we'll see. I have a question, Zane. You're obviously very knowledgeable about this. This is your career. To be transparent to our community, how are you being paid? How much do we pay you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's actually come up recently because we were reviewing the contracts with the mayor in regards to the project. And this contract that we have with y'all right now is based on a % of construction. And so what that does is when we are trying to write the contract almost a year ago, we really are not exactly sure what we're getting into. And so we're throwing a lot of cost estimates from other projects, our institutional knowledge at these cost estimates. And that's where the $6 million came from, is us trying to be reasonable with costs that we've obtained from work on other projects, but also trying to find a balance between saying, oh no, your existing stuff is just all broken, we need to replace all of it, you know, and where is the stuff that's still able to have some useful life, even if it's been around for 30 plus years. And so we don't always do contracts that way. Mayor, I'd be lying if I said the exact percentages, but typically for % contracts on design, we are charging in the range of 8%, sometimes a little less. And then for construction services, we're charging 4%. But I think we may have done just a single contract to get everything under contract all at once. Do you remember, Mayor?
No, I don't. I'm saying I think that's about right, but I might be mistaken.
So, you know, in some ways, there could be perceived an incentive for me to try to increase the price to make the contract more expensive. And we get that question asked a lot. Basically, it's our job to prove to you that we're not doing that. And part of how I do that is I solicit proposals from multiple vendors whenever I'm trying to consider equipment to recommend. And so we can show you from those proposals that there's a range of cost. The example here today would be that we've received 2 separate proposals for the permanently installed air diffuser grid in the bottom of the tank. And one of them was approximately double the cost of the other. And we have not been provided any justification for that doubling in cost. And so that's not the one we're recommending. We're recommending the one that is half the cost. And it's, you know, there's different proprietary things involved there in terms of these different manufacturers' way that they, put together their proposals. So, you know, if we get from you all an approved maximum budget amount, what we would likely do is we would take the 2 proposals we have back to these suppliers and say, hey, you know, we're ready to perform some work. Please review your original proposals. Make sure that you didn't find any errors. You know, we're getting very close to being able to make a decision. Oh, and by the way, can you please justify why yours is twice as expensive as this one over here? And then we might learn something. We might learn that the lower proposal forgot something very important. And so that would be something we would want to figure out before we get under contract.
I have,
But there-
Zane,
Yeah.
I propose to this council that we have an independent person that just represents the city, just kind of overlook the whole plans and stuff. Have you ever had a client do that before?
Yes, sir, absolutely. And I do believe that that is happening. Again, what I sent to the mayor in terms of updated stuff we've developed today.
We're
I haven't had
actually
a
getting
chance to-
into another item on our agenda
Right.
Oh,
at
yeah.
this point. So, but you're right. I have been in contact, and so
Okay.
that's another item on our agenda. So,
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, no, we're used to that. We would obviously love for you to not have to spend resources to do that, to make, give you the confidence that you're looking for, but not have to do it at a cost. But we're totally comfortable with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Myers,
Can we rely on Simon's expertise here?
we're getting off on contract here. Another issue. We're bringing that up in short.
Well, we're talking about options, and I was thinking we ought to have Simon up here talking about the options
I'm
too.
going to come up in a moment. Yep. Or we want to get done with Zane first. Have anybody got any more questions with Zane? Okay. Zane, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And I sent your email on to the council members, so they'll have those figures also. And we'll be getting back in touch with you also. So stay online if Simon's going to give us his words of wisdom.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Zane. We appreciate you. So what I've got is I got a list of notes of things that we've done in the last couple of weeks. I've spent a lot of hours at the wastewater plant trying to make sure everything's running optimal because our sludge storage capacity is reduced while we're making repairs to that leaking basin. But just this weekend, I went ahead and reduced the manning of the plant to 8 hours a day, but we're going to be running it 7 days a week. So I'll have people there every day for 8-hour days. We were running it 12-hour shifts, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we're cutting that back a little bit. I've made some repairs to the sludge press. We had an air cylinder that the output shaft seal and housing were severely damaged on them. The housing from time, and I replaced that air cylinder, and we actually have an extra one now for backup. Half of the belt press system is clogged up and not working right, and I've been taking that thing apart and trying to figure out where it's clogged, and I have yet to find the clog, but I've pulled many rags out of there. We've had this last weekend, we had a polymer pump issue, and that was one of the real reasons why I cut back the hours to 8-hour shift. But the polymer pump just stopped working, so we had to end sludge production altogether. I have ordered a new belt and drums and nozzles for the belt press, and I have a contractor that will have install all that stuff. So that'll pretty much take care of the majority of the overhaul of that belt press. It's not going to be $500,000, which is good. So, and then our sludge basins. So far we've the contractors removed the center section of that old clarifier that was in there, and the basin is cleaned. They have the groundwater situation kind of mitigated. We had a lot of groundwater pumping into that basin that we were having to keep pumped out all the time, but we've pretty much got that taken care of. We're going to recommend that all the PRV, the pressure reducing valves from the groundwater, how they get it, instead of pushing the floor up and damaging the walls, that they all 8 of them get replaced. There's 4 of them in the wall and 4 of them in the floor. They've cleaned out all those PRVs, and they said there was debris stuck in them and stuff, and we kind of think that's where we're losing the solids out of that basin. Of course, Zane talked about the aeration and mixing and a decanter. We'll have to have some SCADA integration with that, because when it fills up, it turns real turbulent, and we only want to decant the water off the top that's clear. So we're looking at doing a decanter on there and then having it timed with the SCADA system, so when it discharges, it doesn't decant sludge back into the SBRs that we're essentially processing again. And then the rag and debris basket. So my vision was just to have a basket that we could lower with a hand crane into that discharge stream into the sludge basin just to catch it, and then the guys can winch it out and put it on the ground, clean it out. It's only a temporary device until we get the SBRs clean, but we're spending so much time and resources cleaning out the sludge basin. I think it's our due diligence to try to keep it as clean as possible so I don't have to redo this process again. And then in the future, we're looking at possibly relocating the polymer injection system to another wall. Right now, it's in the middle of the sludge press room. Takes up a lot of room. We could have put that against the wall during that construction and had a lot more room available to us. We only have one injection pump too, so we lost that injection pump this weekend, and that shut us down since Saturday morning, pretty much. We got it going again this morning again, but when we relocate that, it'll have two pumps, a little bit of redundancy in that operation, so that doesn't happen again. The old sludge pump is actually in the old maintenance shop that floods when we did the tour, remember that? So we're looking at possibly relocating that into the belt press building itself, and then that way there's nothing in the old maintenance shop that we have to maintain. And then we've only got one sludge pump, so adding a secondary sludge pump to that, when that's relocated, we can add the valves and all that to do that. And then we have a lift station at the belt press building, and that lift station, I had Bertram come in this last week. It was giving us some issues. We pulled the pumps out of there. One of the pumps was clogged up with rags and rusted up and needs to be replaced, but I'm waiting on a quote from them to replace those pumps and the internals of that lift station, and to upgrade the panel to give us a call out like we did the rest of the lift.
Where was that pump?
These are right in front of right in front of that press building. So the clear water that comes off the belt press, it flows into a lift station, and then it pumps it back into the headworks. It's that lift station there. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So, Simon, we were chatting earlier about the things that you're finding where you're literally digging through crap, and like perfume bottles and sweet potatoes. For the love of God, this is actually coming through people's toilets?
Yeah, so there was a day where I raked off potatoes off the bar screen last week, sunglasses, a perfume bottle, lots of flushable wipes that are flushable, but they don't decompose in the wastewater stream, so they come.
So when you say rags, you're talking like flushable wipes.
The majority of them
rags
are
from a t-shirt shop or something.
So the majority of rags we're getting are flushable, and I'll say that loosely with a quotation, because they're flushable, but they don't decompose, so they come to the plant as a solid, and they end up getting into our pumps and everything else. On the weekends, we're seeing a large inflow of like t-shirt style rags, terry cloth rags that are coming in. And I'm not exactly sure where they're coming from. I imagine hotel. I don't know. But during the weekend, we see a larger influx of t-shirt style rags.
What does that mean? Are there any identifying marks? This is disgusting, but can you tell where these things are coming from so that we can probably? I mean, I know it sucks, but
I took a taste test of one to see if maybe I could figure out what restaurant it was from, but it didn't work out. No,
there was a towel that said Wanderoo on it.
I know that's not true because we don't have those.
So I think a lot of these rags are coming from like down in Garfield. They have a place where people with disabilities cut up old T-shirts and turn them into rags, and you could buy them in bulk, and I think that to identify where they're coming from is about impossible because they're all different. They have different things, and we're not exactly opening them up to look at them. We're just getting rid of them. So.
Okay.
And a lot of needles. Been finding a lot of needles. I don't know. I understand why people are flushing needles, hypodermic needles, but yeah, a lot of needles.
Is there something that we can do as far? I know this is off topic, but public education about what to flush and what not to flush?
Yeah, that's a great question. So
put it on the back of a bill, or I don't know.
I think I need to probably start doing like a weekly do's and don'ts on the Public Works Facebook page.
Show photographs.
Yeah. I give you guys the good juicy details.
I do have a suggestion about the needles, and that's having sharps containers in bathrooms because there's diabetics that are. And they need a place to go with the disposable needle, and just those containers that you put the sharps in.
Yep.
Would help.
So this plan that you guys are so diligently working on, is that going to make us through the next 15 years?
Partially, because we're not doing the entire plant right now, right?
Okay.
We're trying to work on the sludge storage and processing, and part of the processing is affected by the sludge storage. So we are running a new pipe out of the bottom of the sludge basin to feed the press with the sludge, right? So we're looking at trying to relocate the pumps to where they're gonna be, so we're not running piping to a totally separate building that's in the opposite direction. So a lot of these processes are feeding off each other in what we're doing, and so yes and no. So it just depends on what we're doing, and we're looking at the technological aspect of things too, like how are we going to modernize and make things better for tomorrow than what they are today, and that's part of it. As we get quotes for a second pump for the sludge, there's newer pumps that have come out since we bought the ones that we have, and we could buy the one we have for about $25,000, and buy a second one. But then, is it worth it to do that, or do we spend $30,000 and get something that's newer technology that I know I'll be able to get parts for the next 20 years on, right? Yeah. So
fair enough.
Just to chime in here, the goal with any of our recommendations would be a minimum of a 20-year useful life for that system. So when we're talking about a more expensive floating mixer versus a less expensive floating mixer, they should both last 20 years. That's the intent, and that's what the manufacturers are telling us. Some of it is what Simon's describing. How easily is it able to be controlled and integrated into the existing plant controls? Some of it is other wear components. Less expensive equipment often has more wear components, so you're replacing parts as a part of the routine maintenance, which if you want a piece of equipment that you literally do not have to do anything, even add grease to for 20 years, they have to use more expensive bearings, sealed bearings, different things. So part of equipment being less expensive is you have to maintain it more often, and that becomes a trade-off to staff time on site. And these are things that we just, we're trying to think about as much as we can. Real quick, I have to admit a mistake, and Mayor, I apologize. According to my files, our current contract for McClellan is a lump sum fee contract. It is not based on a percent of construction. I was trying to think about where that might have gotten confused to me, because again, we often will do a percent of construction contract, and I have presented to you all a cost estimate for the work that showed engineering fees as a percent. However, that amount is not the same amount as our, or if it is the same amount as our contract, that was not intentionally a certain percentage, but more specifically, if the costs of the project go up, for instance, if everything we decide to do costs $8 million, that would not make our fee go up.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So do we have any other questions for me?
No, but going back to your cost in Zane too of 20 years, kind of remind the council that this plant that we have was built about 20 years ago. Maybe 20 less, maybe a little over 20, something like that. And it wasn't really completed either, I don't think, was it, Zane? I mean, completed.
That's correct, sir. At the time that it was built, approximately 2011, I think it started to be constructed in 2010, maybe the end of 2009, but it didn't get finished until like 2013 from the records that we have available. And the original design had included a newer screening and grit removal system. that would have been on the north side of the SBR units, so kind of near where the standby generator is located now, at least on that side of the basin. And so at the time, from the records we've been able to find, due to costs, it was determined that the lakeside unit that's still there now, that had already been there in 2011 for some time, was good enough, and they were going to leave it in service. And so that lakeside unit is at least as old, and we think it was installed closer to 2001. So we think it's actually an additional 10 years older than the rest of the stuff that is still in service.
I think
that sounds about right.
I think that's what I'm trying to convey, is that we may not touch this again for 15 to 20 years. We may not have the funds to do that. So we really need this to really get us pushed into at least 10 years. We've got to have this stretch, because look at our history.
What Zane's saying is they planned for 20 years minimum.
Right.
So that's,
Well, but so did we last time.
Some of the portions, such as that sludge storage basin that we're using right now, that was built in 1987. So
Wow.
it's long overdue that we tear into that and start doing some work.
Yeah.
It's like buying a motor, right? And I don't know how many of you guys drive cars with carburetors anymore. You can still buy the motor with a carburetor, but why would you buy a motor with a carburetor when you get fuel injection? You know, and in fuel injection you get parts for it, you know, more easily. So
Burns
you know,
less gas.
we're not looking for a Cadillac of operations. We're just trying to get the new Chevy model, you know, a newer Chevy model that's more reliable, that's going to last us a lot of years. So.
Thank you.
And we're still paying on that original bond.
I know. Well,
So
see what I'm
if this is a 20-year plan, we need to be able to pay this off in 20 years and put money away to
for the
fix
next.
things as it goes along. We haven't been doing that. We hadn't fixed a thing down there in 15 years.
I love it.
anybody else got any questions?
We're doing it.
All right.
Thank you.
Simon. Thank you, Zane.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Next order of business is new business ordinance extending the 2 bags or container trash collections.
Motion to discuss.
And second,
All right. You have in your packet an ordinance amending the ordinance 2348, going from 1 35-gallon container or 1 trash with maximum capacity. But I think what we went to, and then it goes into the 2-gallon containers, which is what this ordinance is.
235,
Or Mr.
yes.
McClung?
I'd like to make a motion, we sign this ordinance a number, put it on and read it for its first reading.
aye. Yeah.
All right, Mr. McClung made the motion to assign the number and read first reading, and Mr. Alvanzino seconded. Any further discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor?
Hold on.
Whoops, I'm sorry.
Sorry, where's my hand?
I didn't see you
Sorry.
or hear you.
I know I spoke up about this before, and I'm going to speak up again. I think 1 35-gallon is enough. I bought a 35-gallon can from Walmart. I can stuff 3 large white kitchen trash bags in there, and they don't care how many is in there as long as you get the lid on there. And Berryville's been doing this for 12 years for 1 35-gallon, and their additional bag tag is $5, not $2. And to me, again, we have to remember what our motivation is here is to encourage people to recycle. So if they have to look at what they're not stuffing cardboard and bottles and stuff into the trash can and put in their recycling to get down to that 1 35-gallon bag, that's the purpose of it. And I think if Berryville can do it, we can do it. It's not a competition, but don't we want to win? You know, it's like, come on. I don't think $5 a tag that's a lot of money. $2 a tag, I don't think is a big deal. Unfortunately, I see a lot of people who forget Wednesday morning to put it out, then they have to come back next week and put out double. But that's your fault. That's not the city's fault. So I still advocate that we stick with 1 bag. I think I'm very proud of the city for being the best recycling city in Arkansas.
Still
And I think
is.
we still are. And I think we should remain that. And I think, again, we should stick to one bag. That's just my opinion. So,
All right, anybody else? I got a motion and a second. Place this ordinance on sign number and place on first reading. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? All right, was that all 6 people saying aye?
so this ordinance is one bag or is it two bags?
2 bags.
Okay. I'd say no.
All right, it's 5-1. Is that correct? Okay.
Assigning ordinance number 2362, an ordinance amending ordinance 2348. Whereas ordinance number 2348 limits the amount of trash to one 35-gallon container and/or one trash bag with a maximum capacity of 35 gallons, and whereas one 35-gallon container or one trash bag with a maximum capacity 35 gallons is inadequate for some households. Now therefore be it hereby ordained by the City Council of the City of Eureka Springs that ordinance 2348 be amended to Section 1, standard weekly trash service shall be for 2 35-gallon containers or 2 trash bags with a capacity of 35 gallons. Section 2, if more than 2 containers or bags of trash are placed at the curb for disposal, each additional bag or container must be identified with a bag tag. Bag tags can be purchased for $2 each at Public Works. Any overflow or excess bag of waste not marked with a bag tag will be left on the curb. Section 3, net income from the bag tags will be contributed towards trash and recycling education.
Mr. McClung?
I make a motion we approve ordinance number 2362 on its first reading.
Second.
Mr. McClung made the motion to approve it on first reading. Mr. Myers seconded. Any further discussion? Yes, ma'am.
So I'm kind of agreeing with Steve that if we're going to educate and recycle, I guess we can still do it, and maybe I'm just talking out loud. We can still do it whether we limit it to 2 bags or just do one 35-gallon trash bag, and you can put 3 bags in if you want. But I do like that in Section 3, it talks about the bag tags will go towards recycling education, which I really have not seen any here, other than you can get a container. But I think there's some confusion on how to, cities are different on how to separate. You know, if there's a paper label on a bottle, can you put it in there, or do you have to take the bottle off? And
All right. Ms. Slang?
I would like to kind of respond to that. Even it's a little confusing because the recycling program is done through Carroll County City Waste. We are taking the $2 in at the city, but then we're trying to advertise for what they're doing, you know, from Carroll County. So it's a little, we're in the beginning stages of it. I mean, honestly. And it's unfortunately has to fall on Public Works as far as the education.
Well, okay.
I have a question about Section 1, where it says shall be for 2 35-gallon containers or 2 trash bags. I thought it was 1 35-gallon container or 2 trash bags, not 2 35-gallon containers.
Mr. Mayor, the trash bags are 33-gallon trash bags.
Okay, but we're delineating the two between container and bag.
Well,
like I have a container, it's a 35-gallon container.
Right.
So now I can have 2 of them?
That's what we've already approved that. That's what we've been.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing all along.
May I speak?
Okay.
Okay, so we initially passed the ordinance that restricted it to 1 bag. We then got a sunset clause that said you can have 2 bags until this date. We are now past that date, so we are back to a 1 bag program. So if you pass this ordinance, it'll be back to 2 containers or 2 bags. It's been that way until the sunset clause. And they're continuing to do that.
Ms. Gurney?
Okay, so we can have, 130 or 1 trash bag. So we can have 2 35-gallon containers?
If you pass the ordinance. This ordinance is for 2 35-gallon containers or 2 trash bags. If it doesn't pass, we'll go back to 1 container or 1 trash bag.
Right. So can both of those 35-gallon containers have 2 trash bags each? A lot of trash.
So
According to Mr. Holyfield, you can put 2 bags in 1 container. So,
You don't
yes.
have,
I can put 4 in mine.
Put two bags in 1 container. Yeah. Mr. McClung?
Well, I can put 2 35-gallon, 2 33-gallon trash bags in my 35-gallon can, but it doesn't matter. You don't even have to have a bag. You could put, fill your 35-gallon trash can up, and they'll just dump that. You don't have to even use a bag. It has to be in something. And so the trash bags are 33-gallon bags. That's what they come in, the dark bags. The white ones are 15s. And so that's why you can fit 3 of them in there. So I put 2 of the 33 gallons in. Now, they're not completely full, and I mash it down, but it fits fine. So if you are setting it out in bags, then you can only set out 2 bags. They can be crammed full or they can be partly full, but that's the individual choice. We can't define, that whatever we set as the limits, and then they stay within that. I would be more in favor of raising the bag fee if that was what you wanted to do, but
Mr. Meyer?
Now, commercial, like I'm sure you pay a commercial rate, it doesn't affect you. This is only households.
but I still need to know.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah.
I'm just making sure that you understand that it's.
So,
Yes.
so if you have 2 bags in 1 container, and say you had family in, and you had more trash than usual, so you would have to get a second container.
Or a big bag, another bag. You don't need a container.
Now, I do want to point out, too, for the public and everybody else, there's some confusion. We tell Carroll County Solid Waste what we want to do, and that's not what this is about. Carroll County Solid Waste is responsible for picking up the garbage, doing the recycling, and all of that. All we're doing is telling them, from now on, pick up 2 bags or 2 containers on there. And otherwise, there's more than that, don't leave them, unless there's a tag on the bag or the container, I guess. So anyway, just make that clear. All right, any further discussion on this before we vote? All right, I think we had the motion to go ahead and approve this 2362 on first reading. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
No, no.
All right, 4-2. Okay, is that correct, 4-2? All right. Mr. McClung?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve it, or did we do? That's what we just did.
Yeah.
So I'd like to make a motion, we suspend the rules and read ordinance number 2362 by title only for its second reading.
I'll second.
All right, Mr. McClung made the motion to suspend the rules and read 2362 by title only, and Mr. Myers seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Terry McClung,
Yes.
Harry Meyer,
Yes.
David Avanzino,
Yes.
Autumn Slane,
Yes.
Steve Holofield,
No.
Susan Girding.
No.
Ordinance number 2362, an ordinance amending ordinance 2348.
Okay,
I'd like to make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2362 on its second reading.
I'll second.
Mr. McClung made the motion to approve it on second reading. Mr. Myers seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Autumn Slane,
Yes.
Steve Holofield,
No.
Terry McClung,
Yes.
David Avanzino,
Yes.
Susan Gerning,
No.
Harry Meyer.
Yes.
All right, vote was 4-2. Mr. McClung.
I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the rules and read ordinance number 2362 for its third and final reading by
And
title only.
I'll second it.
We got to approve, which, aren't we approving this one on the second reading?
We already did that.
Okay, so we're on the third reading?
We are on our third reading.
Okay, Mr. McClung, you're correct.
Once.
And Mr. Myers seconded. All right, Mr. McClung made the motion to suspend the rules and place 2362 on its third reading. Mr. Myers seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Susan Gerning,
No.
David Avanzino,
Yes.
Harry Meyer,
Yes.
Terry McClung,
Yes.
Autumn Slane,
Yes.
Steve Holofield.
No.
At 4-2.
Ordinance number 2362, an ordinance amending ordinance 2348.
Okay. Mr. McClung?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve ordinance 2362 on its third and final reading.
Second.
All right, Mr. McClung made the motion to approve it on third and final reading. And Mr. Myers seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Steve Holofield,
No.
Terry McClung,
Yes.
Susan Gerning,
No.
David Avanzino,
Yes.
Autumn Slane,
Yes.
Harry Meyer.
Yes.
At 4-2. Mr. McClung?
I'd like to make a motion that we invoke the emergency clause for ordinance number 2362.
Second.
Mr. McClung made the motion to invoke the emergency clause for ordinance 2362, and Mr. Myers seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Harry Meyer,
Yes.
David Avanzino,
Yes.
Steve Holofield,
No.
Susan Gerning,
No.
Terry McClung,
Yes.
Autumn Slane.
Yes.
Emergency Clause, Section 4, that due to the need to consistently apply all laws and ordinances of the City of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, for the health and safety of the citizens of the city, emergency is hereby declared to exist, and this ordinance shall take effect upon passage of the Eureka Springs City Council, signing by the Eureka Springs Mayor, City Clerk Treasurer, and posting of the ordinance.
All right, thank you all. All right, that brings us up to our next item, under new business is ordinance to amend park membership. Get a motion to discuss.
Motion to discuss.
Second.
All right, this was brought to me by the Parks Commission. They have trouble getting a full membership body, and they would like to go ahead and have, right now they have 2 members that are voted on from outside the city limits, and they would like to amend that to having 3 from outside the city limits. Mr. McClung,
How many members are the total?
7.
7.
7.
And so right now, they're lacking 1, and I think they've always been lacking, 1 or more. And you got to remember, too, not that our parks are outside the city limits, although some people think like Leatherwood is, but it's inside the city limits. But people enjoy our parks from all over the county and all over just not inside the city. So they felt like this was justifiable to have members from this side of the river.
And let's be frank, most of the people complaining about our parks don't step up to be on the commission. So let's open it up and get people who do want to be on Parks Commission.
Mr. Myers?
We've had people that wanted to be on the commission, and then some reason or another, they stayed for a little while and then resigned for one reason or another, because there's like all commissions and all things, there's contention. I don't know if this will help it. If it does, okay. If it doesn't, well, it won't hurt.
Ms. Slane?
Does that 7 include the head, or is that 6 commissioners and a
6
chair?
commissioners and the chairman.
I don't agree with this at all. I think that you open it up to just everyone in the state, correct? Or do they have to live in the county?
No, it's
Just the county?
It'd be just this side of the river, the western district.
And it specifically
It
says
doesn't
that?
say that, no. But
But does that
I
say
can't
in our
imagine-
rules
I mean,
now?
Yeah, you could get somebody from El Dorado, Arkansas, if they want to drive up here twice a month.
I just worry that the direction of the board would be 3 outsiders, and not meaning out, but outside of the limits.
You can always amend the ordinance, too, to require it to be on the western district, similar to what the fire district is. And I'm not sure, Forrest, you wrote this. Did you look at the other ordinance? No. Yeah, so I don't know if the other one says it's on the outside or not.
The current ordinance says 2 members of the commission may reside outside the western corporate city limits. Any member living outside of the corporate city limits shall be required to live within the western district of the Carroll County, Arkansas.
So we could have that inserted without a problem. And that would take, then it wouldn't be everybody from the state, wouldn't even be anybody from Berryville.
Them folks on the
Mr.
other
Clark?
side of the river.
I'd like to make a motion that we amend this ordinance to include that any appointee would have to reside in the western district of Carroll County.
Second.
You want to kind of reread that?
That can be done as a section 2.
Yeah, when we read it? Okay. All right, any further discussion on this amendment?
I'd like to add to that amendment that the chair must live in the city.
And the chair live in the city? Okay,
That would be another amendment. That's
that's true.
so.
Yeah,
just
we'd have to do one
let's vote this
amendment, one amendment at a time. Yep. All
Oh,
right.
yeah, we got to vote on that one
Yeah.
first.
Okay,
Okay.
any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, 5-1. All right, you want to add your amendment?
Yes, I'd like to add that the chair has to be a resident of the city.
I got a question.
Okay, do I get a
It-
second
it-
on that one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, second it. I'll second it.
Okay,
Now, I have a question.
Now your question.
And that is what is Sam? Sam is the Parks Director.
Parks Director, yeah.
He's not the chairman.
He's not on the commission.
Yeah, just want to make sure everybody understands that.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Thank you.
All right, any further discussion?
Building a house outside.
All right, the second amendment is that the chair shall be a resident of the city. They reside within the city limits. So all those in,
Is the current chair a resident of in the city?
Yes,
yes.
Mark Ingram is.
Oh, okay.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
What do we have? Did you vote no also?
No.
Okay, 4-2. All right. Passes. All right. Now I get a motion to approve assign the ordinance a number and read it for the first reading.
I move that we approve the ordinance as amended and read it for its first meeting.
Second?
All right. So Mr. Meyer made the motion to assign the number and approve it as amended.
Can I recall my second?
And
Yeah, sorry.
yeah, no, I got you. Ms. Lane seconded. All right. Just wanted to make sure I heard the motion correctly. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
No. I know, I tried to recall my second, but
Oh,
I tried to
that's
recall
all right.
my
You can vote.
second.
You can
Yeah,
vote
but you
now.
thought that I said, yeah.
Okay.
So whatever I need to do here.
It's getting late. We're getting there.
You can go
Sorry.
both ways, it's fine.
I know,
It's
I
okay.
know.
Let me get this amended. Let me get this amended real quick and I'll read it.
Okay.
How does this sound, Forrest? The chair of the Parks Commission shall be required to live within the corporate city limits of Eureka Springs. For the amendment. Okay, just wanted to make sure. Signing ordinance number 2363, an ordinance to amend Parks membership 1204020B. Whereas the Parks Commission needs more flexibility as to members residing outside of the corporate city limits of Eureka Springs. Now therefore be it hereby ordained by the City Council of the City of Eureka Springs, Section 1, Eureka Springs Municipal Code 1204020B is hereby amended from 2 members of the commission may reside outside the corporate city limits to 3 members of the commission may reside outside the corporate city limits. Any member living outside of the corporate city limits shall be required to live within the Western District of Carroll County, Arkansas. Section 2, the chair of the Parks Commission shall be required to live within the corporate city limits of Eureka Springs.
All right. Got a motion to approve ordinance
So moved.
23? All right.
Second.
Mr. McClung made the motion. Mr. Myers seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay.
What's the number again on that? I'm sorry.
2363.
2363. All right. All right. Council wish, we'll go ahead and take this up the next meeting.
Yes.
All right. Next order of business is, discussion, financing, and verification of the sewer plant. Steve Holyfield, get a motion to discuss.
Motion, I move that we discuss.
Second.
All right. I think this was a combination of what we were talking about earlier. I had contacted Phil Lewis, who's a civil structural engineer that I know of, and asked if he knew of somebody who might be willing to look and do a peer review, basically, of what McClellan is doing. And he suggested there was a engineer that used to work for him who now works over in Springdale named Rick, I'm going to probably mess his name up, Polventi, and he's also worked with McGoodwin, Williams, and Yates. And he said, and I talked to Rick, and he said he'd be more than willing to work with us and looking over what McClellan has done and meeting with McClellan. And in fact, he's already contacted both Zane and Daniel Barnes, the chairperson over there, about getting together and looking over the drawings and documents, what they have, and giving us a report. And there'll probably be just a minimal cost
Okay.
on that, if any at all, he said. He may do that anyway.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens. But
That makes me feel better. I think to the people in town that we do our due diligence, make sure, it makes me feel better that their contract is a lump sum too,
Yeah.
not a percentage.
Yeah.
Because again, the salesman telling you what you need to buy is a little scary to me, especially now that we feel like we're in a rush to get it done. And I don't want 10 years from now to go, oh no, we really made some mistakes here. Also, I really do, I think Terry's idea about having a committee at some point, looking at the options on financing it. And also, everybody in town, they say after the CAPC ballot issue, the other thing that everybody's talking about is this cost of this plant stuff. So I think maybe at some point a town hall meeting, then have everybody come and ask questions and talk about it to really include the community and why we're doing this and let them ask questions and be informed and stuff.
Absolutely.
That's all I ask.
I think a lot of it would help once we get more toward the, and they may get good. I talked to Zane to see where, and after we get our peer review, where we are, if they feel comfortable with the process of where the design is, because I know we did this with the last one
Okay.
on there too, so I think that'd be good.
If I may, and I agree with that, and we just need to have more of a foundation to present
Right.
than what we have right now. But yeah, it's certainly not,
That's what I meant, after Zane gets us a better
yeah.
scope of work of what they're planning on doing and the approval of the peer review engineer.
But I think our public wants to hear why this is emergency, what's going on. It's confusing. For us, it's confusing. There's so much technical information, and I want the people to think that we really have thought this out and gone to the best way we can do to make it as cheap as possible in financing and stuff. So.
Mr. Myers?
Well, cheap isn't the big deal. The big deal is having a plant that operates properly, that doesn't pollute the people downstream. This is the city that water built. And if you go down there below the plant and look at the bottom of that creek, that's going to Branson and all the people that drink the water out of Table Rock Lake. We need to, of course, conserve our dollar, but we've got to make sure that this is built properly. We can't cut corners.
I don't think there's a question to that, Mr. Myers. Yeah.
Well,
So,
corners have been cut in the past. There hasn't been money in the budget to fix the equipment that was there. And I don't know where that lays, but
But that's a whole different issue on what happened to the last plant and the sewer lines and everything that didn't get built and where the money, so different issue. Ms. Slane?
So do we need to make a ordinance or resolution for what we spoke about today with Zane, or?
Not yet.
Okay.
No. We'll bring one back when we get more to that point, so. All right, any further discussion?
just one more thing is, let's get the fix done now, so that we're not polluting the creek. Let's go ahead with that project, and then we can, because we don't know how much that's going to cost. And that's got to be spent, but that's all.
All right, our next item of business is get a motion to discuss a resolution to act to set a public hearing for consideration of vacating a section of Carroll Street.
Motion to discuss.
Second?
All right, this is a resolution to set a public hearing for vacation. I don't have that right in front of me.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we sign this
That's it.
resolution and read it for passage.
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion?
I can't find the resolution.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? So moved. That's what I was looking for, Harry.
And major packets.
You want to look at mine?
You've got,
You had the maps out earlier.
Yeah, I had the map. I got the map here.
It should be the very top page.
Let's see.
Did you undo your paper clip?
Don't have the resolution. Oh, there it is. There's go.
It's right here.
Let me look.
Ripped apart your packet.
Please, I'll find it.
Found it.
yeah, was in the middle of it. All right. Did we already vote? I'm so confused.
We're ready for-
Did we bring this up and vote, so we're ready to read it?
We're ready to roll call.
Okay, roll call.
David Avanzino,
Yes.
Steve Holofield,
Yes.
Harry Meyer,
Yes.
Autumn Slane,
Yes.
Susan Gerning,
Yes.
Terry McClung.
Yes.
Assigning resolution number 874, a resolution to set a public hearing date for the consideration of vacating a section of Carroll Street. Whereas the property owner of Block 221 of the Riley and Armstrong survey has submitted a petition to the city of Eureka Springs to vacate an unused section of Carroll Street running east and west. And whereas the signed petition was submitted to council in regular session on October 14, 2024, along with a plat showing the streets, alleys, and adjoining lots. And whereas Arkansas Code 14-301-302C provides that the city council shall by resolution fix a day for this hearing of the petition filed to vacate a street or alley. Whereas the law further directs the city clerk to give notice of the meeting by publication once per week for 2 consecutive weeks in some newspaper published in Carroll County, Arkansas, and having general circulation in the city. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, that the petition to vacate the above described street is set for hearing on November 11th, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the auditorium of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, and that the city clerk shall give notice of the meeting by publication as set forth by Arkansas Code 14-301-302C.
All right. That concludes that. So agenda setting. Okay, moved on to city council comments. Ms. Grunning, you want to lead off?
Sure. So Corvette weekend, I swear I never saw so many than this, when the Corvette weekend, just lining the street. So I'm hoping that was a success for downtown businesses. The art walk this past weekend was really nice. I don't know if anybody got out. Of course, the weather, we're in a drought, but the weather was great. And I appreciate the local businesses staying open because I saw a lot of tourists coming through. I was sitting at Main Street, and it was amazing having people come in with their little card and, where do we go next? And having that interaction, I think, has really been very nice. So that's all I have.
Yeah.
CAPC update. We had a workshop on October 9th to talk about next year's budget. I really ask people, please show up, give your input. I saw people on Facebook saying, what's the budget? Can I get a copy of it? But then absolutely nobody showed up for the workshop. So October 23rd is our next meeting. We'll have another workshop on November 13th at 6 p.m. to talk about creating a position called events coordinator, which they used to have. So if anybody has any opinion about that, please show up and give it. I also want to, again, mention the November 5th ballot to do away with the CAPC and the CAPC tax. Please talk to your neighbors and friends. You have to live in town, be a registered voter to vote on this issue. Please don't think everybody will just vote against it. Please talk to people, educate them. We still have people asking us what it means. So hang in there. Thank you.
Mr. Avanzino?
Yep, since this is our last council meeting before early voting that I believe, and the local issue number 3 is weighing heavy on everybody's minds, I just want to be clear that, Pat Masukas, along with some of her signature collectors, Linda, Karen, so forth and so on, misled some of the people of this city when they gathered signatures to revoke that CAPC tax. They told some that they had a plan, assuring them that if the tax went away, there was a clear path forward. And it has become glaringly obvious that this is not true. They presented no plan, there was no plan, and there is no plan. These individuals manipulated and misled members of our community. They bullied both locals and business owners using tactics that were nothing short of dishonest. They downplayed the consequences, telling people it wouldn't be so bad, while refusing to acknowledge the pleas from those who saw the potential disaster looming. Even after positive changes began taking shape, they were so caught up in their own sense of power that they pressed on, blind to the damage that they were causing. Now here we are, facing the potential downfall of Eureka Springs as we know it. And let's be honest, some of the very people who have brought us to this point won't even be around to see the consequences. They'll move on, they'll move away, leaving us with the mess that they've created. Is this really the legacy that they want to leave behind for our city? Instead of being part of a solution, they have chosen to be part of a problem, and they are, without a question, the problem. Their behavior has been reckless, like petulant children throwing tantrums, and now they want us, the residents, business owners, and city council, to clean up this mess. They are telling us that it's up to us to find the solution to a crisis that they themselves have created. Well, I am mad as hell, and I refuse to let them off the hook. I've always believed that when casting a vote, especially on measures that can drastically change the course of our city, it is crucial to fully understand what a for vote means, down to the smallest detail. If I don't fully understand the consequences of a measure or what life will look like should it pass, I will always vote against it. I believe it's irresponsible to assume we know what change will bring when we don't fully understand it. That is why I am urging the public to vote against ballot issue number 3. If you don't fully understand what dissolving the CAPC will do to our police department, our fire department, emergency medical services, public works, the auditorium, and even our schools, then the safest and most responsible vote is to vote against local issue number 3.
All right, Ms. Lane?
I just want to do a quick thank you to Public Works, especially through this challenging period of the sewer system. It's terrible, but you're absolutely holding together our crumbling infrastructure. So thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Myers?
Yes, our infrastructure. The reason we have a sewer plant the size of it that it is because we're a tourist town. And over the years, lots of money has been made off of tourism. But not much money has gone into our sewer plant or the rest of that type of infrastructure. And I can see citizens being upset about that. I think we need to concentrate on what we can do for our infrastructure so that tourism can carry on. Because if we get shut down and we get a $50,000 a day fine because our sewer plant ain't working right, so what? If we got tourists, they'll have to poop in a bucket. And everyone has a right to petition their government, take their grievances and petition the government. These folks did that. If people didn't understand what they were signing, they didn't read it. I mean, I won't sign anything I don't read. So, let's not cut down the people who circulated a petition. Instead, let's make this town look a lot better and serve the citizens a little bit better.
Mr. McClung?
I also agree, vote against ballot issue number 3. The CAPC is very important to the city of Eureka Springs. And that's all I need to say about that. Everything's been said. Then I just wanted to check on if the signs for the smoking in the park have been for no smoking in the park, Basin Park.
The signs are there. They're not noticeable, but they're there.
Somebody paint over them or what?
No, they're just not very large. They're not your billboard size.
He didn't.
Not your sandwich size.
Conspicuous.
Oh,
Asked them to be.
So you need them to be more conspicuous, or
We'll need to talk to Sam. Yep.
okay? I'll talk to him. That's all I have.
All right, I got several items, and some of it's been brought up, but I do want, and Mr. Meyer mentioned the infrastructure. Many people move to Eureka Springs and they forget past. They don't have a very long institutional memory. 2016, the City Council, upon my urging, tried to and did pass a special legislation to try to pass a 1-cent sales tax for infrastructure. 3/4 cent was to go to water and sewer, 25% or of 1 cent was to go for the auditorium. Got soundly defeated at the polls. It got voted down by the public. Now they're complaining about not having any money and having us to cost. How much is costing? That's how we ended up coming up with our I&I fund. And we told people at that time that the visitors were going to pay for that 1-cent sales tax, not the locals. I mean, they'll pay some, but a small amount when you look at it overall. Because as we noticed from COVID, 95% of our business is tourism. Our restaurants couldn't stand if they had to survive on our local business. They'd go broke. They shut down. So we didn't even have a place to eat except for Hearts. So, you know, once again, we have to think about what we're doing and who's paying the cost on these items, you know. And it's real frustrating when I see that the public saying those things, because we have put out a plan, and the CAPC cannot pay for infrastructure. They have a purpose, and it's not for water and sewer, sidewalks, or streets. So, you know, that's... But, however, the tourists that do come, the visitors that do come, do put in the sales tax, and that does help us. You know, that fortunately, that's what we live on, is our sales tax. We don't have a big box shop or anything like that, so it's our tourism that pay for that. So we're real blessed in that market. You know, I could go on and on that one, but that, you know, when I see people talking about our infrastructure and how it's failing and we don't support it, you had a chance to pay for it and support it, and you didn't do it. Now we're suffering the consequences. So now we're having to pay the $6 million to $8 million. And it may be a bond issue, and it may come back to a vote for the people again. And unfortunately, the bond issue is something, you know, maybe we'll do another sales tax. I don't know. Maybe that's another solution. We'll see when we're getting into our water and sewer and how we're going to pay for that. You know, because we're still looking at that group and how we're paying in our water rates. So anyway, on to other good and positive news in a sense. Somebody mentioned Corvette Weekend. There was almost 600 registered Corvettes up at Pine Mountain. And I bet there was another 400 in town that wasn't registered, because I saw an awful lot of them parked on the side of the road and in the motel. So that was about 1,000 Corvettes that we had in this weekend. It's almost probably the same as our Jeeps. So it was a good weekend. Last weekend was great. A lot of people in town. So it's that time of the year. A couple of items I would like for the public to be aware of. We do have cardboard pickup, cardboard curbside. The clients need to call Carroll County Solid Waste, and Eureka Springs will pick up the cardboard at your residences on the first and third Fridays. First and third Fridays of the month. The cardboard has to be flattened and be on the side of the curb, and you also need to call Carroll County Solid Waste to make sure they'll pick it up. But they will pick it up. And that kind of goes along with our recycling. There's been a notice in paper or someplace that we're not doing recycling. That's only for the county. We're still recycling in the cities, so there's no problem. They'll still pick up recycling just like we always have. And of course, we still have the recycling center. So the Carroll County Solid Waste is not doing recycling in the counties. So if you live in the county, you got to go to our recycling center and dump your recycling stuff off. Legal Aid of Arkansas is going to be holding a free legal advice workshop this Wednesday, October 16th, from 9 to noon at the community centers. Topics will include divorce, family law, child support, custody, orders of protection, tax problems, IRS, anything seeking IRS assistance. So if you got legal issues, go up to community center. They'll be there from 9 to noon on October 16th. War Eagle Fair is this weekend, October 17th through the 20th. So we should have a big weekend for that. One of my favorites is Eureka Traditions coming up, Voices from the Silent City. I don't think Mr. McClung's in it this year.
Not for sure.
So it begins this Thursday, and it runs October 17th, 18th, 19th, 25th, and 26th. Cemetery tours leave every 20 minutes between 5:30 and 8:30 and go out to, I used to call it, what would you, out by, I'd call it the old Ramada. Where's the parking lot by?
They're at the old Ramada, which is where the old hotel they tore down.
Yeah, the hotel that tore down. Anyway, they'll be running shuttles from there.
Eureka Brewery.
Yeah,
Eureka Brewery.
next door to Couple of.
Yeah, that area. They'll be running buses and trolleys every 20 minutes out there. Free. So it's now you got to buy your tickets for the voices, but it's always fun. I always enjoy it. Mini Coopers are going to be here the 24th through the 27th, and they'll have the Mini Cooper Parade Friday, October 25th at 4 p.m. And if you didn't see the Arkansas Democrat Gazette this morning on the front page, the zombie crawl was on the front page of the Demgas. And this has all kinds of things going on for the undead. I got the Nightmare in the Ozarks Film Festival here in the auditorium. You got the Zombie Crawl Ball, October 25th from 7 to 9. And on Saturday, October 26th, undead activities include spooky vendors, thriller dance classes, the official merch march, scavenger hunt, music, makeup artists, and all brand new brain buffet. It didn't say where that's going to be.
I think it's in Basin Park.
Basin Park?
I think so. That's what I was told.
Yeah, events start at 12 p.m. and at 6 p.m. the zombie crawl will start coming down Spring Street, followed by Night of the Walking Dead dance party. So it should be a lot of fun. I've already had people from all over the state and out of state call me and ask me about it. So it should be a lot of fun and excitement. So other than that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Wait a minute.
Just one thing. I went to the ballet here at the auditorium.
Oh, yeah.
I did too.
It was really good. I mean, I wasn't sure about Dracula, but they performed it so well that if you get a chance next year, I hope they come back. Definitely go see.
Thank you. All right, now I'll take that motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
All right, all in favor, stand up and leave.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.